Marek, welcome to MDrives. Today I'm in Audi Q2 1.4 turbo petrol and I'm doing a long-term review for you. So this car has been in my household for about 3 years now. So we did about 30,000 miles in it. It's our workhorse, so I'm in a perfect position to give you that long-term view on what you can expect from this car. As I mentioned, it's a workhorse. We use it for everything. We took it for the very long trips to France, etc. And it was absolutely perfect. It hides its size really well. It's not as small as you might think. When we were purchasing this vehicle, I was looking at the Q3 as well, and to be honest, there wasn't that much difference between them. They are quite similar in size, so this car is really, despite being very compact, it actually is quite roomy inside. So if you have a family of 4, this car really does the job. And the boot is actually quite reasonable as well. The suspension is funny because it's not rolling a lot in the corners. It actually feels quite stiff. However, it takes the bumps really well. It doesn't struggle with the bumps, so it provides a comfortable ride. But when you want to drive this car more dynamically, it's not a problem. It has a button called Drive Select where you can actually change how your car behaves. However, it doesn't change a lot apart from, I guess, pedal mapping and the steering. If you switch it in dynamic, the car reacts quicker on your input. But to be honest, even in the corners, I'm on a bumpy B road now, it's pleasant to drive. It takes corners really well. Yes, you can feel some roll, but I think most of it now comes from the tires, not the chassis. The car stays reasonably flat for a mini SUV, and it's actually quite pleasant to drive. The engine likes to be revved if you want to extract a lot of power from it. However, it feels very strong at the bottom. Once you get the boost in, you can actually pull with the lower torque in this car as well. In terms of power output, it has 144 horsepower, so for a small car it is actually quite reasonable power. And to be honest, you can actually accelerate quite quickly in this car. I think 0 to 60 is around 8.5 seconds, which is great for a little family car, which meant to be economical as well. I think the only problem with this car is it has a turbo lag. Unfortunately, being a small turbo engine, the car struggles if you are not in a higher revs. Once you are there, it's perfect, it's really responsive. But I'm going to demonstrate you now how it struggles at the lower revs. So I'm in a second gear now, 2000 RPMs. I'm going to put my foot down and it will take about 2-3 seconds before car will pick up. Now, you need to get used to it. It takes some time to actually get used to that thinking that you have to put your foot down before something will happen, unless you are in a high revs. So at the moment, let's say I'm in 3000 revs now, and I'm gonna push it hard to the floor and it picks up pretty much straight away. There might be a second delay, but you know, 3,500, there's maybe a half second delay before car starts pulling. But I'm gonna show you now 5th gear, 2000 RPMs, foot flat on the floor. Now it picks up. So as you can see, when you're in the lower revs, it takes sometimes for the car to pick up and to start pulling. But once you get used to it, it's absolutely fine. This car is equipped in a 6-gear manual gearbox, and to be honest, it works perfectly fine. The gear changes are really light, I mean really light. They don't require any force. It goes easily, it's quite precise, so I have absolutely no problems with that gearbox. It's also quite long, so on a motorway, if you're in a 6th gear, it really returns a good economy. Normally when you run this car in a mixed cycle, it probably will return between 35 to 40 miles to the gallon. If you're careful on a motorway, running it at 70 miles per hour with cruise control, you will easily see around 45 miles to the gallon, if not more. And if you're driving on A, B roads and you are doing 50 to 60 miles per hour on a cruise control in a 6th gear, the car can easily do about 60 and more than that. So in terms of economy, it's perfect. It can run on 2 cylinders as well if you're above 2000 RPMs, and there's no power required, so the engine can switch off 2 cylinders and run on just 2. And to be honest, it works really well, especially on a motorway. If the terrain is quite flat, if the car doesn't have to use a lot of torque, it switches off the 2 cylinders. You can actually see the message on the dash to tell you that you're running on 2 cylinders, but actually you can't really tell from just running the car. It behaves normally, the switch is completely smooth, and there's no difference really. And obviously that saves you a fuel. This being an S-Line version, it comes with quite a few additional things, like bigger wheels. So it has 18-inch wheels, which look quite good actually. It has wider tires, 215s, which actually aren't too cheap, so bear that in mind when you're picking an S-Line version. It has better seats, however these ones are manual. It also comes with S-Line steering wheel and couple of other bits which are different from the lower trim version. So let's accelerate now, so you will be able to see how it picks up the speed. And we're at 60. So it takes some time, but to be honest, you know, this is not what this car is about. It's meant to be a car which is comfortable and it's perfect for a family. So I'm on a single track road which is quite bumpy, and the car deals with it quite well. Despite being on the harder side, actually, the suspension can take out all the bumps pretty well, so it smoothens the ride quite surprisingly. If you want to drive it more dynamically, the car will happily take it. So as you can hear, the car sounds pretty well, and what you actually hear comes from the engine. It doesn't come from the speakers like in many modern cars. So this is, to me, much better than some kind of artificial sounds of much bigger engine. If you're really careful with your throttle input, you can actually see over 60 miles per gallon in this car if you keep it in a 6th gear and you drive around 50-55 miles per hour. So I think for a petrol engine that is absolutely fine. So if you take it for a long drive, you put your family in, you can easily get about 40-45 miles to the gallon. So your holiday won't be that expensive. When you drive it on a bumpy road at 60 miles per hour, like I'm doing now, the car feels absolutely fine. It feels smooth, it's not crashy at all, it separates you well from smaller bumps. So in that terms, you know, it's a perfect medium. So I think as a family car, this is actually a perfect proposition for a small family up to 4 people. You will be able to fit in easily a car seat in there, or if your kids are a bit grown up, you shouldn't have a problem with fitting in here, even if they are an adult size.
Let's stop for a moment and talk about design of the Q2. Q2 has a quite boxy shape, and I have to say, at the very beginning when Audi released it, I wasn't the biggest fan. It took me some time to actually appreciate the angles and the boxiness of this car. When you look at the car from different angles, all the sharp edges and lines starting to make sense, and they work really well all together. And thanks to this shape, this car offers much more space inside that you would expect. Lengthwise, this car sits almost right in the middle between A1 and A3. Inside is a typical Audi, it's all functional and quite pretty. The boot has 405 liters, which is only 15 liters less than the Q3.
So the next thing I want to talk about is reliability. So this car was quite reliable over the last 3 years and 30,000 miles. We had 3 issues with this car. One of the rubber joints in the front suspension perished, and we had to change it. Luckily, it really costed pennies, so it wasn't a big issue. The second one was repaired by Audi under warranty, and that was a fault of the front sensor, which stops you in case of emergency. Unfortunately, the wire which was going to the loom was broken, and basically that was causing an error. Audi changed the wiring loom and the problem disappeared. The last problem was the washer pump. It actually died completely and I had to change it. I bought one off eBay for about £9 and I changed it on my drive in about an hour and a half. So really, it wasn't a problem. Other than that, the car gets oil when it needs to get oil during the services. We didn't have to top it up with oil at any point, so it's quite good. So this is definitely a car I can recommend. You won't have a massive problem with this car. The engine works fine, the suspension takes it really well. The interior, despite being quite plasticish, it's actually quite strong, so even if you have kids, you shouldn't be too worried. They should not be able to damage it easily. So yeah, it's quite a good proposition for a small family. So I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions, please drop me a comment and I will respond to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching. Please make sure give this video a like and subscribe, and I see you shortly in the next one. Thank you. Goodbye. Do widzenia.